Welcome into another Dynasty rookie profile where we dive deep into the 2024 rookie class. And today we're looking at wide receiver Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky, a very, very intriguing prospect. And if this is the first time you guys are watching this series of videos where these Dynasty rookie profiles, we're taking one player, we're diving deep into the numbers, and we're doing this in order to equip ourselves better when it comes to our Dynasty rookie draft. So again, I mentioned this in every video, the top 5, 6, 7, 8 picks, they're already kind of determined. Maybe one goes over the other, but we know who's going in the top 6, 7, 8 picks. It's when we start to get to the late first, the second, the third rounds of our Dynasty rookie drafts. That's when we start to separate ourselves. If we can find a gem, if we can find a player who breaks out, who's a sleeper, who's a Puka Nacua, a Tank Dell, that's what kind of helps our Dynasty teams. And that's what we're trying to find here. Now, what's fun about football and about Dynasty football is there's no one number that tells you, oh, this player is going to be good or this player is going to be bad. But hopefully we can kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together in order to, again, better equip ourselves to find that gem of a player. So Malachi Corley, a very, very intriguing prospect in my opinion. A lot of people really, really like him. But to me, he's one of the harder prospects to evaluate just by how he was used at Western Kentucky. We'll get into that in just a minute. But here you see it, 5'11", 5'10". I've also seen 210. I've seen as high as 220. Not exactly sure. I guess we'll get combine numbers. It is February 22nd, by the way, so the combine's about a week away. It is a week away from starting. So I don't know if we got the official height and weight here, but I put down 5'11", 210. I have seen as high as 220. You see his 2023 number, 79 catches, almost 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. He's projected right now to be a third-round pick, according to Mock Draft Database. I believe I've seen him as high as the second round, and I think I've seen him as low as like the fourth or even maybe fifth round. So, kind of all over the place here with Malachi Corley, but according to Mock Draft Database, he's going as like an early third-round pick. So, Let's start by looking at just some of his advanced numbers here. Yards per route run at his last year in college was 2.68. Again, we talked about it in other videos. We like to see this number a little bit closer to 2.9 or higher. The really dominant receivers and the guys who produce and turn into fantasy studs usually have about 2.9 into the threes, maybe even into the fours if they have a huge year. ADOT. Average depth of target, 6.1. I think the lowest that we're going to be looking at in this draft class at 6.1. That is extremely, extremely low. And it's one of the concerns for Malachi Corley. And honestly, it's one of the reasons why he's kind of a hard prospect to evaluate overall, is because he had so many passes behind the line of scrimmage. Actually, I went and looked. He had 44 targets and 36 catches behind the line of scrimmage, which is just kind of unheard of. I think it was second in the nation in college football in passes behind the line of scrimmage, targets behind the line of scrimmage. So we're talking about, just like about 45% of his catches coming behind the line of scrimmage. So typically we like to see this number in the double digits, 10.5 to 13 or so. 6.1 is extremely low. So again, hard to evaluate when a guy's just catching a bunch of behind the line of scrimmage passes. Drop percentage at only 2.9. We love to see that. Anything under 7 is good. So to see 2.9, this was actually from 2022, his biggest year at college. Anything under 7 and at 2.9 is awesome to see. A career drop percentage of 4.8. Yards after the catch at 9.7 is really, really great to see as well. Career 8.2, so he's really good after the catch, obviously. Behind the line of scrimmage passes, you're going to get that. Contested catch percentage at 33.3. Again, it's good, not great. I shouldn't say it's good. It's below average, in my opinion. We want to see around 50% or higher. If we're in the 40s, that's fine. Once we get below 40s, we want to see a little bit more, especially for a guy that's projected to play in the slot. We want to see a contested catch percentage of a little higher than that. And then his contested target percentage, a number that I've been looking at recently more and more, how many of your targets were contested, because generally when this is a low number, I think that means that you're getting open, you're creating separation in your routes. Anything under 15% is really, really good in my opinion. under 20 is what I want to see. Anything 20 or higher is where I start to be a little bit nervous. A fifth or a fourth of your passes being contested means you're not creating separation on potentially on one of every 4 or 5 of your routes run. So we'd like to see this number south of 20, and south of 15 is awesome to see. Now, when it comes to a guy like Malachi Corley, who had 44 targets behind the line of scrimmage, where it's essentially impossible to contest a pass that's behind the line of scrimmage. I think it is actually impossible, or maybe if a defender makes an amazing play, but I think it's like very, very rare to have a contested target behind the line of scrimmage. So that definitely this number is inflated a little bit. So, again, just so tough to evaluate a guy like this. Getting a little bit more into some other things that are important to evaluate when you are evaluating receivers. The career dominator. Now, this dominator is what percentage of the team's receiving offense was this player responsible for. In Malachi Corley's career, he was responsible for 23% of Western Kentucky's receiving offense. That's over 3 years. His first year, he didn't really play. His second freshman year, his sophomore year, and then last year, his junior year. Combine those together at 23%. His single high was 31%, which was last year. His breakout age is 20. We talk about breakout age being an important thing for if you look at every fantasy relevant receiver over the last 15 years, their breakout age in college was almost all of them was 20 or younger, 18, 19, or 20 years old. Only 8 of 78 wide receivers who've been fantasy relevant since 2010, only 8 of 78 of them have had a breakout age older than 20 years old. So we're talking about a very, very small percentage. Is it possible? Yes. Is it unlikely? Yes. It's one of the few things that you can look at that are just completely in common across the board is the breakout age for fantasy relevant and, good receivers in the NFL. Now, I will say this, COVID, I feel like has kind of messed this up a little bit. We're still in that, I know COVID 4 years ago now, the COVID season, but we're still this year, we're still getting guys coming in out of this draft class who their first year was the COVID year. Some of them their second, but a lot of them their first year was the COVID year. And I think that just kind of messed everything up. So it skews it a little bit. I don't think it gave them a lot of opportunity to break out at the age of 20, but and then his highest PFF grade, 84.4. We love to see that. And then a couple more things, guys. His snaps by position. He was almost exclusively in the slot. 83% of his snaps last year were in the slot. 13% out wide. And then I put in the backfield just to show his versatility a little bit, 2%. So we like to see him moved around. We do like to see this a little bit more balanced, especially in college. We want to see this a little bit more balanced. Now, Western Kentucky, their style of offense, maybe they play a lot of 3, 4, 5 wide receiver sets, and so they're just always going to use them in the slot. So, and then you see here his grades versus man coverage. He was really good. Zone coverage a little bit less, not as good. Now, I'm not saying being good against man is a bad thing, but ideally, we want to see them either be even or better at zone coverage because that's 70% of the NFL. 70% of the time, NFL defenses are running zone coverage. So, now this makes sense given the style of player he was used in college. Again, behind the line of scrimmage, pop passes, bubble screens, jet sweeps and things like that. It's going to be much tougher to cover a player like that in man coverage than zone coverage. So it kind of makes sense. Again, it just adds to the idea that this is such a hard prospect to evaluate. Now, I really like Malachi Corley when I watch his film. I really, really do. I love the combination of the size and speed. Apparently, he put on 20 pounds since his first year at college. Over his 4 years at college, he put on 20 pounds. And he's playing at that 215, 220 weight. He's rumored to run in the low 4.3s. He made it onto Bruce Feldman's freak list. I think he ranks 100 kind of freaks in college, and Malachi Corley was one of them. And he arrived at Western Kentucky at 193 pounds, is up to 220. So again, we'll see at the combine, but he's running in the low 4.3s. He has a really good shuttle time. He's strong. You just watch him. when he gets the ball. He reminds me a bit of Deebo Samuel in terms of his ability to just break tackles. It's very, very hard for him to go down, or it's very hard for people to bring him down. And so, he reminds me again of like that Deebo. He's almost like a running back in a wide receiver, playing the wide receiver position, but he's just awesome in run after the catch ability. Obviously, his hands and drop percentage is a really, really good thing to see. His dominator rating, we want to see the career dominator rating. Typically, we want to see it north of 25%, but we definitely want to see it north of 20%, so that's good. And then the single high up in the 30s is really good as well. Again, the guy's just a yak player, but how is it going to translate to the NFL is the big thing. We see plenty of players like this that are able to get away with this in college. You're able to use them like this in college because the talent, especially at Western Kentucky, the talent's just not quite there. So you're looking more, let me just get the ball into the hands of my best players. But in the NFL, you can't run an offense where, your number one receiver is catching, or even number two receiver maybe is catching 30% or 45% of their passes behind the line of scrimmage. It just doesn't work that way. You can't run an offense that way. So Malachi Corley, a lot of things I like about him. Again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, this guy's definitely going to be an amazing player, because there's kind of two paths that he can go. We see a lot of players. That are kind of these behind the line of scrimmage gadget players. Kadarius Toney, Rondale Moore. These are two players that come to mind that were pretty high draft picks in the NFL draft. Kadarius Toney, a first-round pick. Rondale Moore, I believe, a second-round pick, a high second-round pick, I believe, or mid. And they just haven't panned out. They just haven't, because how they're used in college, you can use it in the NFL as your third, fourth, fifth receiver. And when I say pan out, I mean for fantasy football, dynasty football purposes. Neither of those guys are reliable, and they're barely reliable. Kadarius Toney's case, he's not even reliable for an NFL offense. So does he go the path of those kind of players, or does he go more towards like the Jaden Reeds, the Deebo Samuels, or even like an Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I've seen comps to? I don't like to do comps a whole lot because, again, it's just a hard thing to do, to comp a player to another player. But is he more like that type of player? So he has an intriguing profile, and I'm kind of a sucker when it comes to these versatile players, these players that get handoffs. And I know it doesn't sound like a whole lot, but look at a guy like Deebo Samuel. Look at a guy like Curtis Samuel. I don't know if there's any connection to the name Samuel, but both these players, they give up they produce a significant amount of their fantasy production can come through the ground. We had Curtis Samuel in 2020, 200 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about for a receiver, that's significant, because now all he needs to do is receiving yards of 800, 750, and he's a productive fantasy player. Deebo Samuel, obviously we know what he can do on the ground. Jaden Reed was being used like that. With Green Bay there for a while before he got hurt. They were giving him 2, 3, 4 carries there for a 3-4 week stretch. And could Malachi Corley be that type of player? I think he can be, and I think the NFL, again, is going a little bit more towards that versatility. And, can you do multiple things for me on the field? It just makes your offense, adds layers to your offense. So is he going to get enough production? That's the biggest key. Is he going to be the Rondale Moore, Kadarius Toney? Is he going to go the Jaden Reed or Deebo Samuel route? I want to say he's going to go, I'm not saying he's going to be Deebo Samuel, but my hopes for him when I draft him in Dynasty rookie drafts is that he's going to go towards that Deebo side. We're talking about a guy who's going to be probably an early third-round pick. Maybe he sneaks into the second round. But specifically in this draft in 2024, there's so many studs. I mean, we're talking about potentially 5 quarterbacks going in the first round, a tight end, potentially 5 or 6 receivers going in the first round. That's 11, 12 players already. Plus, we have a bunch of wide receivers that are going to go in the second round, probably another 4 or 5 receivers. So plus the running backs that are going to go. So we're talking about a guy that's being drafted, if he's drafted in the third round. In Dynasty rookie drafts, we're talking about maybe early third round of your Dynasty rookie drafts, and those guys are already crapshoots. I'm going to take a shot on a guy like Malachi Corley because I think he's going to get on the field no matter what. There's going to be a spot for him, a role for him in the right offense, whether it's through these gadget plays and that's all he becomes, or whether it's through these gadget plays he gets on the field and then he shows, hey, I'm better than that, and they start to give him more and more and more. So I'm going to take a chance on a guy like that. I'm a sucker for these versatile players, and the NFL is heading towards a more versatile world. You look at the number since 1990. I went back and looked since 1990. Wide receivers to have 30 or more carries in the season. There's only been, I believe, about 23 of them if you take out Cordero Patterson and Ty Montgomery, because they were actually more like running backs, but they were still listed as wide receivers. There's only been about 23 wide receivers to have 30 or more carries in a season. And I believe like 14 of them have come in the last like 4 years. So it's just showing you the path in which the NFL is going. It's heading towards this more versatility. It's a monkey see, monkey do, a copycat league type of, a copycat league, right? People see Deebo Samuel or Jaden Reed be successful getting the ball in their hands. I hope Malachi Corley can turn into a guy like that. So super high on him. He's a guy that I'm going to be targeting late second, early third of my Dynasty rookie drafts if he does get this third round draft capital. And I'm curious to hear what you guys have and what you guys think about him. One last thing I will say, Western Kentucky, their offense, whether it's with Malachi Corley or not, over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been multiple Western Kentucky receivers to be near the top of the NCAA of college football in these passes and targets behind the line of scrimmage. So it could be more of just, this is how Western Kentucky, they throw the ball a lot. This is how Western Kentucky just runs their offense, right? Again, they throw the ball a lot. Bailey Zappi came from Western Kentucky, and I think he broke records in terms of just how much he was throwing the ball. So, he threw the ball 687 times in college in 2021, which is kind of unheard of. So the fact that they throw this many, those target numbers are going to be higher. But again, love to know what you guys think in the comments about Malachi Corley. I know a lot of people are high on him. I'm kind of, I think, in the middle. I'm higher than a lot of people. I'm maybe a little bit lower than other people just because he is such a hard prospect to evaluate. So as always, guys, if you want to see more of these, we're going to start getting to the running back soon. Combines coming up, which will be fun to see. So as always, like and subscribe. We'll be putting out some Dynasty rookie mock drafts here soon. And thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you guys next time.